Tomorrow, Hamas have announced they will release another Israeli hostage, Yarden Bibas. Now, you may remember that Yarden was kidnapped with his wife and two young baby children, Kvir, who was 8 months old, ginger haired, as we might remember from the photos, and Ariel, who was aged 4, together with his wife. But tomorrow, only the father, Yarden, will be released after 483 horrific days in the dungeons of Gaza. So he will find out that his wife and children may well have been murdered by Hamas. I want to remind you of a few things. Firstly, even ISIS in Syria and Iraq didn't kidnap 1-year-old babies. Secondly, we know from Hamas film footage inside Gaza that was captured that all 4 members of the family were alive when Hamas had taken them into Gaza. We'll probably be told tomorrow by Hamas that the children have been killed, possibly by Israel, and we will know that's a lie because Hamas lies about almost everything. For example, it lied that the hostage released last week, Emily Damari, had been killed in an Israeli airstrike, and of course, Emily turned out to be alive. However, I have grave fears for the well-being of Yarden's children and wife Shiri, because we know that Hamas executes hostages that it can't control, and therefore it might have killed a baby and a 4-year-old that it couldn't stop crying. Early on, after October 7th, they executed a little disabled girl, aged 12, called Noya. Now, we may remember Noya because the one thing she liked to do was dress up as a character from a Harry Potter film. And J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, had put out a message on X calling for her release. But again, Hamas probably felt they couldn't control a disabled child, so they executed her along with her 80-year-old grandmother she was kidnapped with, and they just dumped their bodies. I'll say one other thing about Hamas. Last week, the British Israeli hostage Emily Damari was freed, and we may remember that after she was released, she hugged her mother, but she also hugged a young female friend. That friend is actually her partner because Emily is a lesbian. Now, the fact she is homosexual was hidden by Israel from Hamas for the year and 3 months she was in captivity because Hamas torture gay people and do the most horrendous things to them, including Palestinian gays who they've thrown off the rooftops of Gaza to their deaths. So groups like Queers for Palestine that operate on American universities might want to think about the fact that now Emily is back in Israel, she can openly proclaim once again that she's a lesbian with her lesbian partner. Whereas when she was in Gaza, she could have been killed for the fact that she was a lesbian. I also want to emphasize that Hamas is not just releasing these hostages. In turn, the worst kind of murderers are being released from Israeli prisons. So, for example, one of the killers, who was freed a couple of days ago by Israel, orchestrated a suicide bomb in Haifa, the town in northern Israel. It was a bomb in a restaurant that's jointly owned by an Israeli Arab and an Israeli Jew. And about 16 people, mainly children, were killed in that bomb. And several young children were blinded. And in fact, I just saw an interview with Oran Almog, one of the kids who was age 10, who was blinded in that suicide bombing and lost his father and younger brother and grandparents in that bombing. And yet, out of the generosity of his heart, Oran, who is blinded, says that although it pains him deeply that the murderer of his family is being released by Israel, he sees it as a nevertheless happy thing that the hostages are being released. And one bit of nice news about 10-year-old Oran, who was blinded in that bomb, he grew up to be a very brave man, and he actually came third place in the World Blind Persons Sailing Championship, as well as have a successful career in technology. So at least that's one good thing. But today, our hearts should be with Yarden Bibas, the man being released without his wife and young children.